Hello there, my beautiful friends. Today we have a very exciting palette to talk about. We are going to be doing a review of the Nabla Soul Blooming palette. So many of you guys have asked for this, so let's go ahead and jump right on in. So I was planning on doing a review of this guy about a month ago or so, and I only picked this up at the end of summer, but I figured by the time that I got it around to me and by the time that I tested everything, it was a little bit too late to actually review this. I figured it was old news considering that Nabla has come out with an entirely new palette since this launch. I figured no one would actually want to see a review on this, but quite a few people since my eyeshadow palette collection video have asked me to do a review on this. So ask and you shall receive, my friends. I am more than happy to do a review on this baby because I have a lot of opinions, so let's jump on in. So I picked this puppy up from the Nabla Cosmetics website, and I bought this guy for €35.90, and I believe that is about $42 here in the States, but I think that that was a pretty good price for 12 shadows. You do get 12 beautiful shadows on the inside, you get a nice mirror, and I like this palette. I think it's pretty compact, and I like the actual packaging itself. I don't think that the $40 price point is a bad price point by any means. Nabla Cosmetics shadows are not the cheapest. Most single shadows are around $5, sometimes cheaper, sometimes a little bit more, and they retail for about €7 to €9 on the Nabla Cosmetics website. So I think this is a pretty good deal considering that I'm usually paying like anywhere from $10 to $12 for an actual single shadow from Nabla Cosmetics. I mean, they are bomb, don't get me wrong, but they're pretty spendy. Now, the actual packaging itself is absolutely to die for. I think this is some of the prettiest packaging I've ever seen. I love how small it is, and I love that it's kind of like fits in the palm of your hand, if you will. As you can see, when I hold my hand up, I can basically hold the entire palette in my hand, which I like. I like that it doesn't take up a lot of space, and I think that the actual flower printing on the front is just so freaking gorgeous. I love flower print. I have a bunch of skirts that look like this. I have shirts that look like this. Honestly, if they released like a limited edition shirt, I would buy it in this pattern because I think it's freaking beautiful. I absolutely love it. If I ever came out with my own palette, I would definitely decorate it with something like this. Let's get into what people care about, which is the eyeshadows themselves. So in the Soul Blooming palette, you get 3 different types of formulas. There is 1 crystal shade, 6 super mattes, and 5 fluid metals. So the super mattes, of course, are just your basic everyday matte shadow. They're pretty blendable, but they're not super pigmented. They're not overly pigmented by any means. So if you're used to working with really pigmented eyeshadows, you might be a little bit taken aback by the fact that these aren't super pigmented, but they are extremely blendable, and you can definitely layer them up and build them up to get full pigmentation. Now, the next formula that I want to touch on is the fluid metals. These are essentially just your everyday standard metallics, but a few of them in here are actually duochromes, which I personally appreciate because we all know that I am a duochrome fanatic. And Nabla does duochromes really well, so I appreciate them putting some of their duochrome formulas into the actual palettes themselves. And finally, the last formula is the crystal formula, and this is my personal favorite, and this is like everyone's personal least favorite that's tried this palette. I don't know what it is, but people seem to hate this formula, but I absolutely love it. So the only crystal that's in here is the shade Honey Drip, which is my absolute favorite shade in the palette, but this is essentially like a crystal top coat type of eyeshadow, so you're not going to get full pigmentation when you pick it up with the brush. In fact, the crystal formula doesn't really pick up with the brush at all. These are definitely meant to be used with your fingers. Now, some people might not like that, and that might sway the opinion of some people from wanting to buy this, but there's only 1 shade like that. But let me tell you, the actual pigmentation and the shine of the crystal shadow is worth the extra effort that you have to put in to pick it up with your finger and pat it on and kind of finesse the product in, and whatever you have to do to make it work. It is so very worth it. Trust me, I absolutely love the shade Honey Drip. It is to die for. If they came out with it in single pans, I would have like 3 backups already, which I am hoping and praying that they do, because I would love to get my paws on more of this because I feel like I'm gonna hit pan because I use so much of it. Now, the crystal formula is definitely flaky and chunky and a little bit thicker than your typical everyday metallic shadow. It's like that with any kind of eyeshadow topper. And lately, I've been completely loving eyeshadow toppers, and I feel like they get a bad rep because so many people hate them, and they definitely take a little bit of extra effort, but they look so beautiful on the eyes, and these shadows just have a certain kind of shine that liquid shadows and that normal everyday metallics or everyday duochromes won't give you. Honey Drip has some sparkles in it that are kind of iridescent-y colored. You can see some pink sparkles, you can see some mint green tealish sparkles, and they are absolutely beautiful. You can see them on the eyes really, really well. But the base color of Honey Drip is a white gold that has kind of like a peach shift to it, if you will. It's a very multi-dimensional eyeshadow, and honestly, I was lusting really, really bad over a specific quad from Tom Ford that I saw Mel Thompson use, and there was a shadow that is so reminiscent of this shade that's in that quad, except that quad is literally $96 and this guy is about $41 USD. Now, as far as I'm aware of, I don't think that Nabla has come out with any crystal formula eyeshadows in their single shadow collection. They already have some eyeshadow toppers, but they're not the same texture and they don't have the same amount of shine and sparkle as Honey Drip does. Honey Drip is truly unique and I haven't found anything else like it. And granted, I have a giant collection of white gold eyeshadow. I have basically every formula under the market that's available because I'm an insane person and I bought a bunch of them trying to basically dupe out Honey Drip, and none of them have come even close. None of them have the same sparkle and the same shine and the same reflex that this one does. So I truly feel like the crystal formula is very unique. I'm not sure if they've put any of the crystal formula in the other palettes, but they definitely don't have anything like that in their single shadow range. I'm not sure if this is just like a one and done formula for them and they were just testing it out. Personally, I really like it. I know a bunch of people absolutely hate it and I understand why, but you just have to work with it a little bit and it is absolutely stunning. So now let's go ahead and go over the shades that are in this palette. First off, we have Honey Drip, a wet effect top coat with gold and peachy copper reflex, which is a crystal formula. We have Gia, a medium apricot beige, which is a super matte. Chamomile, which is the toasted almond, a super matte. Bolero, a coral pink super matte. Middle Karma is a honey brown super matte. Garden Gate is an orchid purple duochrome with an aqua blue, mint, and fuchsia reflect. Climbing Rose is a watermelon-based duochrome with bright rose gold reflex, which is also a fluid metal. Garcon is a medium copper bronze with the champagne rose reflect, a fluid metal. Anemone is an intense indigo with magenta and cyan reflex, fluid metal. Flowery is a pastel wisteria blue, which is a super matte. Philosophy is a baby pink duochrome with jade reflex, which is a fluid metal. And finally, Caravaggio is a dark cool-toned chestnut, which is also a super matte. So the Soul Blooming palette obviously has a nice amount of color variation here. You know, we have some corals, we have some blues, we have some purples, and I particularly really like that the duochromes have these really interesting shifts to them. We have Garden Gate, which is kind of like a fuchsia lavender, if you will, and it has this gorgeous aqua blue reflex. I also really love Philosophy, which is a baby pink that has a green reflect to it. I think these are really beautiful and interesting shades, and you can really see those duochrome shifts on the eyes. They don't look one-dimensional, they look very intense, and you can really see that duochrome shift. You can see it shift from basically baby pink to jade green if you're wearing Philosophy, and you can see it shift from fuchsia to aqua blue if you're wearing Garden Gate. These are definitely good shadows and they did not come to play. They are very intense and in your face. Now, I would have to say that my least favorite formula in this palette are the super mattes, and they're not bad by any means, but as I mentioned earlier, I just don't feel like they're that pigmented. You can definitely build them up, but I'm the kind of gal that personally likes to go in with something really pigmented and then kind of sheer it out myself, especially when it comes to bright colors. And when I'm going for a bright look, I want to reach for something that's really pigmented, and then if I end up going a little bit too ham, that's on me. I personally would rather these be really pigmented and I can work with the formula just to have that full pigmentation and not to have to work a little bit harder and layer things on top, because that just takes extra time in the morning or in the afternoon or whenever I'm getting ready, and I like to cut as much time as possible from my makeup routine because Lord knows it already takes me so freaking long to do it in the first place. I do, however, think that if you're someone who doesn't like super pigmented eyeshadows and wants to dip your toes into these types of colors but doesn't want to go for something that's super pigmented and intense, or you're just someone who wants to try out color but you're not super used to it and you don't really know what to do with something that's overly pigmented, I think this might be a good palette for you if you're interested in the color selection, because these mattes aren't so pigmented that you can go overboard. You really can't go overboard with these shades. They don't really build up so much that they're super bright and intense, and you can definitely blend them out even when you layer them on top of each other. So I appreciate that in this formula. I think the blendability of these are really nice. They practically blend themselves, but I don't know, I'm kind of willing to risk pigmentation for blendability, but I definitely see this palette being very user-friendly as far as the mattes go for people who are into color but they just don't want something that's crazy pigmented. There's also some pretty tame shades in here as well. We have Chamomile, which is is basically just a tan, and Caravaggio, which is this matte brown. Then we have Gia, which is like a terracotta, warm, nudie brown, if you will. We have some pretty toned down shades in here, and for some people that might be really nice to be able to have your everyday colors in here mixed with some brighter, fun pops of color. Now, as far as the mattes go, I definitely wish that there was more bright colors in here, but I feel like I say that in every single review that I do. I am a bright color lover. I love bright colors. I love things that are very in your face and intense when it comes to eyeshadow. So the fact that everything's a little bit more muted in here and you do get those more basic shades isn't super beneficial for me because I don't reach for them. I do like the mattes that they put in here that are on the colorful side. I like Valerio. I have this today buffed in the inner third of my eye and brought underneath the lash line and buffed in the inner third as well. And I blew that out with Flowery, which is this beautiful periwinkle matte shade. I think this is a pretty unique shade. We don't really see periwinkle mattes very often, and when I first laid eyes on the ABH Norvina palette, I automatically thought of this palette. I think that some of the shades in there are very similar to this puppy. Now, as for the rest of my eye look, I basically just buffed everything out with Flowery to kind of get a gradient effect, if you will. Then I cut the crease and I packed Honey Drip all over the lid, and I actually applied a pigment on top of that that kind of neutralized the golden undertone that's in Honey Drip, so I probably shouldn't have done that, but the deed has been done. And then finally, I went ahead and just lined my upper lash line with the shade Anemone. I basically just took it on a winged liner brush and just kind of smudged it out. I just wanted something that was really cohesive and kind of brought together all of the colors that are in this palette that actually stand out. I like the look that I got today, but I'm not overly crazy about it. I'm gonna say the same exact complaint here that I say in every video, but I just wish that these shades were a little bit brighter. I wish I didn't have to layer on like 3 or 4, sometimes even 5 layers to get a bright pigmentation out of them, but I don't think that that's what these shades are necessarily meant for. Like I said, these are definitely meant for someone who likes neutrals and likes colors, but doesn't want something that's overly pigmented and overly intense. So let's talk wear time here with these shadows. I basically get about 8 to 10 hours of wear without these starting to look muddy or without them starting to fade. Definitely if I've been out all day, out in the elements, out in the wind and the rain and whatnot, and I come home and I look at my makeup, I can definitely see a little bit of fading, but if I'm just chilling at home like I mainly always am, then I don't really notice much fading, and these definitely last pretty well on my eyes. I think that the mattes in this palette would perform a little bit better with natural haired brushes just because they aren't super pigmented, as I said, and I think that those types of brushes could pick up the formula a little bit better than synthetic brushes. Now, when it comes to the duochromes, you definitely want to use a synthetic brush because it'll pick up that shadow and place it down. I use glitter glue with all of the shimmery, metallic, duochrome, topper, whatever it may be. I always use a glitter glue with shimmery eyeshadow because I get transfer like crazy. So if I don't use glitter glue, no matter what I'm using, no matter what shade it is, I will get transfer. So I always use that with these, and I find that it works perfectly. You're definitely gonna need a glitter glue with Honey Drip because it will transfer on you, and you might even get a little bit of transfer with the shadow on. But as I said earlier, I'm willing to risk it for the biscuit here and take that extra step, go the extra mile for Honey Drip because he's worth it, trust me. So my overall thoughts on this palette, after I've just basically rambled and jumbled all my thoughts together here. Good thing I'm doing a review video, right? I think that if you're going into this palette thinking that these colors are gonna be really bright because it looks really bright online, you're definitely gonna be a little bit disappointed. These definitely aren't insanely pigmented. I have way more pigmented eyeshadows in my collection, and I know that online, on their Instagram, they make it look like these shadows are the most pigmented things in the entire world. And I don't know how the hell they get those swatches to look so good and so pigmented in real life, because I've seen someone live swatch this palette on their Instagram and these looked insanely bright and insanely pigmented, and then when I got it in person, I was like, these are not that bright, these are not that pigmented, but they're buildable. But I don't know what kind of trickery and wizardry they got going on over there, but my palette did not look as pigmented as those swatches did. Nonetheless, it is a beautiful palette, and I think this palette will be an absolute staple for the right person. You know, as I said like 500 times now, this palette is definitely going to be good for someone who isn't super crazy about overly pigmented eyeshadows and wants something that's really blendable. If this color scheme is calling out to you, I think it's a good palette. I think you can get a lot of looks with it, and I think that you have a nice variety of shades, and I think that if this is your color scheme, go ahead and go for it, because I don't think you'll be disappointed as long as you don't go into it with the mindset that these are going to look like exactly what you see on their Instagram, because Girl, it ain't. I fell for it too. Don't worry, you're not alone. But with that being said, that is all that I have to say. That is my review on the Nabla Soul Blooming palette. I really hope that this was helpful for you guys who were wanting this video. I hope that it was able to help you make a decision in whether or not you wanted to purchase this and pick this up, or if you wanted to just skip over this. So let me know down in the comments what you feel about it, if you've tried it, if you think the formula is good, if you think the formula is total crap. Let me know, because I know so many people are like completely divided on this palette, especially with the shade Honey Drip. I mean, you either love or hate that shade. There is no in between. But that is going to be wrapping up this review video on the Nabla Soul Blooming palette. I do hope that you consider subscribing if you have not already. I am doing all sorts of makeup goodness here on this channel, so if you are not already subscribed and you would like to be, I would love to see you hit that button down below. And if you are feeling generous today and you enjoyed the video, I would absolutely love it if you would give this video a thumbs up and turn on the notification bell if you want to know when I am posting. You know how us YouTubers are, we're always out here begging for likes and views and all sorts of crap like that. But I hope that you are having an absolutely amazing and beautiful day wherever you are, and thank you so much for watching and joining me today. I hope to see you next time. Bye!